Lieutenant Commander Samantha Wright stared at the massive space station through the viewport of the USS Pioneer. The structure was enormous, easily 20 times the size of Earth's largest orbital platform. Lights twinkled across its spiral. Arms and smaller ships moved around it like bees around a hive. "It's really something, isn't it?" Captain Jack Miller said as he stood beside her. His weathered face showed both wonder and concern. "Yes, sir," Wright replied. "Hard to believe we're the first humans to see the Galactic Council headquarters. Only 3 months ago, the Pioneer had made humanity's first faster-than-light jump. 2 weeks later, they'd intercepted strange signals coming from this sector of space. No one had expected to find a thriving galactic community of over 300 alien species, all organized under one governing body." Ryan Garcia, the ship's intelligence officer, rushed onto the bridge. His normally calm demeanor was replaced with visible excitement. "Captain, I've finished analyzing their communications," Garcia said, holding up his tablet. "It's not good news. The Council doesn't treat new species as equals. They classify them as developing civilizations and basically turn them into client states." Miller frowned. "So they're not looking for new members. They're looking for new subjects?" "Precisely, sir." Wright tapped her fingers on the console. "That explains why they seemed so surprised when we requested a formal diplomatic meeting." Captain Miller turned to address the bridge crew. "All right, people. Change of plans. We're not going in as supplicants. We're going in as representatives of Earth, requesting full Council membership." Garcia's eyes widened. "Sir, no newly discovered species has ever been granted that. The data shows they all go through at least a century of oversight first." "Well then," Miller said with a slight smile, "we'll be the first." Lieutenant Noah Phillips, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Sir, perhaps we should bring along some insurance." "What kind of insurance, Lieutenant?" "Cultural artifacts, sir, to demonstrate Earth's unique development path." Phillips hesitated for just a moment. The 2 M1 Abrams tanks in the cargo hold would make quite an impression. The bridge went silent. They had brought the tanks as part of a military equipment demonstration for any potential allies they might meet. No one had seriously considered bringing them to a diplomatic meeting. Miller stroked his chin. "That's either the stupidest idea I've ever heard or the most brilliant." "The Council races seem to respect strength," Wright added. "Their communications suggest they view diplomatic posturing as a sign of power." Miller nodded slowly. "Engineer Blackwood, can the tanks be transported to the station?" Chief Engineer Alan Blackwood looked up from his station. "The shuttle bay can handle one at a time, sir, and they should work fine in the station's artificial gravity." "Good. Right, you'll be with Ambassador Fletcher and the diplomatic team. Garcia, continue analyzing their communications. I want to know everything about Council protocol. And Phillips, coordinate with Security Chief Martinez to prepare those tanks. Make them shine." As the crew rushed to prepare, Miller turned back to the viewport. The massive station now seemed less like a wonder and more like a challenge. 6 hours later, Ambassador Diana Fletcher stood in her formal uniform reviewing the plan one last time. "Are we really doing this, Jack? Bringing tanks to a diplomatic meeting?" Miller's expression was firm. "The Zentari Empire has ruled this council for thousands of years. They've turned hundreds of species into vassals. I won't let Earth become another conquest." Fletcher nodded. "The shuttle is ready. The council representatives are waiting." As they walked toward the shuttle bay, Wright fell in step beside them. "Sir, the Zentari High Chancellor has sent a message. He seems amused that a primitive species would request full membership." Miller's eyes narrowed. "Well, let's see how amused he is when we park 2 Abrams tanks in his council chambers." The shuttle departed the Pioneer, carrying the first humans to formally represent Earth to the galaxy. Behind them, loading into a larger transport vessel, Security Chief Kelly Martinez supervised as the gleaming war machines were secured for transport. The day humans showed up at the Galactic Council was about to begin. Ambassador Diana Fletcher took a deep breath as the massive doors to the council chamber opened. The room was enormous with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in tiered seats that formed a complete circle. In the center was a raised platform where speakers could address the council. "Remember," Fletcher whispered to Lieutenant Commander Wright, "we are not here to beg. We are here as equals." Wright nodded. Her stomach was in knots, but her face remained calm. Behind them, 4 human guards in formal military dress followed at a respectful distance. At the highest tier sat the Zentari High Chancellor. His pale blue skin glistened under the lights, and his 4 eyes blinked in different patterns. To his right was a large reptilian creature that Wright recognized from the intelligence briefings as the Krex Imperium ambassador. To the Chancellor's left sat a thin, almost translucent being, the representative of the Alluvian Concordat. "The humans from the planet Earth," announced a small floating device that translated all speech in the chamber. "Requesting an audience with the Galactic Council." The High Chancellor leaned forward. "Welcome, Earth humans. We are pleased to accept another developing world into our protection. The Standard Protectorate Agreement has been prepared for your acceptance." Fletcher stepped onto the central platform. "Thank you, High Chancellor, but we are not here to become a protectorate. Earth formally requests full membership in the Galactic Council." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Some aliens laughed, making strange, chittering or bubbling sounds. The High Chancellor's top set of eyes narrowed. "That is not how things are done," he said. "All new species must first prove their civilization is stable enough for limited self-governance. This typically requires a supervision period of at least 100 orbital cycles of your world." The Krex representative leaned forward, his scales catching the light. "Your species has not even unified your planet. Our scans show multiple governments and ongoing conflicts. You are clearly not ready for membership." Wright watched as Fletcher stood her ground. The ambassador's voice was strong and clear. "Earth may be divided in some ways, but we are united in our desire to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects." The Alluvian representative's voice was soft and melodic. "Young species often think they are ready for responsibilities they cannot handle. It is for your own protection that we offer this arrangement." Back on the USS Pioneer, Chief Engineer Alan Blackwood and Security Chief Kelly Martinez watched the meeting through a secure feed. The 2 M1 Abrams tanks were prepped and ready in the shuttle bay. "They're dismissing us," Martinez said, her hand tightening on her sidearm. "Just like Garcia predicted." Blackwood nodded. Captain Miller said to wait for the signal. "If the ambassador fails to make progress." On the station, the High Chancellor rose to his full height, towering over the human delegation. "The Council has spoken. You will accept protectorate status, or you will be quarantined to your solar system until you reach an appropriate level of development." Fletcher remained calm. "And if we refuse both options?" The council chamber went silent. The concept of refusal seemed to genuinely surprise them. "That is not possible," the High Chancellor finally said. "The Council's decision is final." Fletcher looked to Wright, who gave a subtle nod. They had discussed this possibility. "We request 24 hours to consider your generous offer," Fletcher said, her voice dripping with fake politeness. "As is our custom when making important decisions." The High Chancellor seemed pleased by what he perceived as submission. "Very well. You have 24 station cycles to formally accept the Protectorate Agreement." As the human delegation left the chamber, Lieutenant Noah Phillips fell in step beside Wright. "Did you see how they reacted when we stood up to them?" he whispered. "No one's ever done that before." Wright nodded. "Time for Plan B. Tell Captain Miller to prepare Operation Thunderbolt." Phillips smiled. "I can't wait to see their faces when they see what humans consider transportation vehicles." Behind them, the Council had already moved on to other matters, having dismissed the humans as just another species that would soon fall in line. Captain Jack Miller gathered his team in the secure meeting room aboard the USS Pioneer. A holographic display showed the layout of the Council Station's central plaza, a massive open area connecting to the Council chambers. "Operation Thunderbolt begins in 3 hours," Miller said, pointing to the display. "During the station's night cycle, we'll transport both Abrams tanks to these positions here and here." Engineer Olivia Daniels raised her hand. "Sir, I've completed the modifications. The tanks will function perfectly in the station's artificial gravity. I've also adjusted the treads to minimize damage to their flooring. Miller nodded. Good thinking, Daniels. We want to make a statement, not start a war. Marine Commander Eric Washington stood next to the display. His face was serious as he addressed the team. My soldiers will be positioned here and here, in civilian clothes. If anything goes wrong, they'll secure an evacuation route. Lieutenant Commander Wright studied the plans. What about station security? Intelligence Officer Garcia has handled that, Miller replied. Ryan briefed them. Garcia stepped forward. The Zentari believe humans are primitive and harmless. Station security is minimal at night. They've never had a species bring military equipment to the Council, so they don't even scan for it. Ambassador Fletcher looked concerned. Are we sure this is the right approach? We're essentially bringing weapons into their headquarters. Miller's expression was firm. Diana, they gave us two options. Become their subjects or be isolated from the galaxy. Neither is acceptable for Earth. Sometimes diplomacy needs visual aids. As the meeting ended, Security Chief Martinez pulled Wright aside. I've got 12 officers ready to move with the tanks. They're all combat trained but have been briefed to show absolute restraint. Wright nodded. Good. This is a show of force, not an attack. The next 8 hours passed in careful preparation. When the station's artificial lighting dimmed for the night cycle, 2 large transport shuttles quietly docked at a secondary loading bay. Station workers, bribed with rare earth metals, looked the other way. Engineer Daniels supervised as the first massive tank rolled down the ramp, its engine surprisingly quiet after her modifications. The 70-ton war machine looked even more imposing in the dim light of the station. Beautiful, isn't she? Daniels whispered to Wright, patting the tank's armor. I disabled the main gun's firing mechanism. But they don't need to know that. The tanks moved slowly through the wide corridors, guided by Lieutenant Phillips using station maps Garcia had obtained. They reached the central plaza without incident and positioned the tanks on either side of the entrance to the council chambers. Now, we wait, Commander Washington said, his team taking positions that looked casual but gave them clear lines of sight across the plaza. When the station's lights brightened for the day cycle, the reaction was immediate. Alien station workers froze, in shock. Some fled while others stared in confusion at the massive metal vehicles. Station security personnel approached cautiously, strange weapons held at ready positions. What are these devices? Demanded the head of security, a tall Zentari with military markings on his uniform. Ambassador Fletcher stepped forward, looking as though the tank's presence was perfectly normal. These? Just examples of Earth transportation technology. We thought the Council might appreciate seeing aspects of human culture. Wright had to hide her smile as the security chief's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in confusion. These are civilian vehicles? He asked, clearly not believing it. Of course, Fletcher replied smoothly. We use these to travel difficult terrain. They're quite practical. Word spread quickly through the station. By the time the council session was set to begin, hundreds of aliens had gathered at a safe distance to stare at the tanks. Many took images with their devices, while others whispered to each other. The Alluvian representative arrived early, his translucent body visibly trembling at the sight of the machines. What is the meaning of this? He demanded of Fletcher. Fletcher smiled politely. We've reconsidered your offer and have prepared our response. The tanks are simply a visual aid for our presentation. As the council doors opened, Wright caught Miller's eye across the plaza. His slight nod said everything. The humans were ready to change galactic politics forever. The High Chancellor of the Zentari stood at his podium, all 4 eyes wide with shock. The council chambers were in an uproar. Representatives from hundreds of worlds pointed and shouted at the 2 massive war machines now flanking the human delegation. Remove these weapons immediately, the Chancellor demanded, his voice booming through the translation system. Ambassador Fletcher stepped calmly onto the speaking platform. With respect, Chancellor, There is no regulation against bringing cultural artifacts to council meetings. We checked your bylaws very carefully. The Krex representative leaned forward, his reptilian eyes fixed on the tanks. Unlike the Chancellor, he seemed almost impressed. Those are weapons platforms, not cultural artifacts. Actually, Fletcher said with a smile, these are considered quite outdated on Earth. We use them primarily for parades and demonstrations. Now, this was not entirely true, but the humans had agreed that a small deception served their purposes. From a side entrance, communications specialist Lisa Kennedy entered, carrying a small device. She nodded to Wright, who whispered to Fletcher. The ambassador gestured Kennedy forward. Perhaps a demonstration would help the council understand Earth culture better, Fletcher said. With your permission? Without waiting for an answer, Kennedy activated the device. A holographic display appeared above the council floor, showing footage from Earth. In the video, M1 Abrams tanks thundered across desert terrain, their main guns firing with devastating effect during training exercises. The council chamber went completely silent. Even the Chancellor seemed at a loss for words. The Illuvian representative's translucent skin paled further. You bring such destructive power to a diplomatic meeting? Captain Miller, who had joined the delegation, stepped forward. These are not our most powerful weapons, merely the most transportable. On Earth, we believe in speaking softly but carrying a big stick, an old saying that means showing strength while pursuing peace. The reptilian Krex representative made a sound that the translators interpreted as laughter. I begin to like these humans. They understand power. The Chancellor finally found his voice. This is outrageous. No species has ever shown such disrespect. To the council, Wright stepped closer to Fletcher. They're reacting exactly as we predicted, she whispered. Fletcher nodded slightly before addressing the council again. We mean no disrespect, Chancellor. We simply want to be clear about humanity's position. We will not accept protectorate status. We come as equals or not at all. The Chancellor's skin darkened with anger. You are but one world with primitive technology. The Zentari Empire spans thousands of systems. Miller nodded to Kennedy, who changed the holographic display. Now it showed footage of Earth's nuclear tests, orbital defense platforms, and military capabilities. While much of it was decades old by Earth standards to many council races, it looked impressive. Earth may be one world, Miller said, but we've developed along different lines than your civilizations. What we lack in faster-than-light technology, we've made up for in other areas. The Krex representative leaned over to speak to the Chancellor. Though they tried to be quiet, the human delegation's enhanced listening devices picked up the conversation. These humans are more advanced than we thought, the Krex said, and clearly more aggressive. Perhaps we should reconsider. Around the chamber, representatives from smaller species were whispering among themselves. Many seemed impressed by the human audacity, if not their technology. A small, furry representative from the Norvani Republic stood up. I wish to hear more about Earth's proposal for membership. Their approach is refreshing. The Chancellor banged his ceremonial staff against the floor. This meeting is temporarily adjourned while the Council leadership confers. Humans, remove your war machines from this station immediately. Fletcher locked eyes with the Chancellor. We will be happy to discuss the removal of our cultural artifacts after we have reached an agreement about Earth's status. As they left the chambers, Wright whispered to Miller, Did you see their faces? No one has ever stood up to them like this. Miller nodded. Phase 1 complete. Now let's see how they respond to strength. The council chambers erupted into chaos after the humans left. Species that had been quiet for centuries were suddenly speaking up. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others suggested the humans might make valuable allies. Outside, in the plaza, the human delegation gathered near their tanks. Security Chief Martinez approached Captain Miller with a worried look. Sir, station security is increasing. I count at least 30 new guards in the area. Miller nodded calmly. Expected. Keep our people alert but non-threatening. An Illuvian diplomat approached the group, his thin body trembling visibly. He suddenly collapsed, his translucent skin turning an alarming shade of gray. Chief Medical Officer Daniel Harrison rushed forward. "Stand back. Let me help him." Harrison knelt beside the fallen alien, scanning him with a medical device. "He's having some kind of stress reaction. His biological readings are all over the place." The Illuvian's assistant explained frantically, "The sight of your war machines caused him great distress. Our species has evolved beyond physical conflict. We haven't seen weapons of this scale in generations." Harrison administered a mild sedative that his research suggested would be safe for Illuvian physiology. The diplomat's color slowly improved. "He'll be fine now," Harrison said, helping the Illuvian to sit up. "Just a panic response." The grateful assistant whispered to Harrison, "Many council races are physically weaker than you humans. We rely on technology and alliances for protection." Harrison looked thoughtful as he rejoined the human group. "Captain, I think I just learned something important. Many of these species aren't just technologically different from us, they're physically vulnerable." Wright added, "That explains their reaction to the tanks. They're not just impressed by the technology, they're genuinely frightened by what those machines represent." As they spoke, a small delegation approached from a side corridor. They were representatives of several minor council races, led by a tall, elegant being with iridescent scales. "I am Ambassador Soren of the Norvani Republic," the scaled being said quietly. "May we speak privately?" Miller nodded, and they moved to a secluded area away from the main plaza. 4 other alien representatives joined them, each from a different species. Soren spoke directly. "Many of us have waited generations for someone to challenge Zentari dominance. Your dramatic entrance has created an opportunity." Wright studied them carefully. "An opportunity for what?" "Alliance," said a short, furry being that identified itself as a Pellerin. "The Zentari Empire has kept dozens of species as protectorates for thousands of years. We never advance beyond that status." Miller crossed his arms. "We're listening." Soren explained that a coalition of minor races had been quietly gathering strength. They needed only a catalyst to openly challenge the old power structure. Earth's bold stance with the tanks had provided that catalyst. Meanwhile, back at the main plaza, Security Chief Martinez noticed suspicious movement. "Heads up," she said into her communicator. 3 Zentari security officers are approaching the far tank." Martinez and her team casually repositioned themselves. When the Zentari attempted to place a small device on the tank's tread, Martinez stepped in. "I wouldn't do that," she said, smiling but firm. The lead Zentari straightened to his full height, towering over her. "This is council territory. Step aside, human." Martinez didn't move. "That's Earth property you're tampering with. That would be an act of aggression." The Zentari reached for his weapon. Martinez moved faster than he expected, disarming him with a quick strike. His companions backed away, clearly surprised by her speed and strength. You touched a council security officer," the Zentari said in shock. "You are about to sabotage our property," Martinez replied calmly. "Consider this a cultural lesson about humans. We protect our own." The confrontation drew attention from the growing crowd. Many watched with interest as the Zentari backed away from the smaller but clearly more physically capable human. Inside the council's private chamber, the chancellor was shouting at his advisors. "How did we not know these humans were so advanced? Our scouts reported they had barely mastered space travel." A Krex general growled. "They developed differently. While we focused on energy weapons and shields, they built machines of metal and fire. Primitive, but effective." On the Pioneer, Lieutenant Garcia monitored council communications. "Captain," he reported over the secure channel, "you need to hear this. The Zentari are preparing a military response. They're calling in a battle fleet." Ambassador Soren of the Norvani Republic led the human delegation to a secure meeting room away from the main council chambers. Representatives from 7 other species joined them, each taking seats around a large circular table. "The Zentari have ruled through fear for too long," Soren said, her scaled skin catching the light as she moved. "Many of us have been waiting for a chance to create a more equal council." Ambassador Fletcher studied each alien face carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" a short, stocky being with rocky skin, spoke up. An alliance. The Zentari call themselves the founders of the council, but that's only partly true. Many of our races helped build this community. Wright leaned forward. If so many of you oppose Zentari rule, why haven't you challenged them before? Fear, said a bird-like representative with bright feathers. The Zentari control the largest military fleet in the galaxy. No single race could stand against them. Miller nodded slowly. But together, with Earth joining in? Exactly, Soren replied. Your willingness to stand up to them has inspired others. Look around you. These representatives are from worlds that have been silent for generations. Fletcher considered this. We need to act quickly. Our intelligence officer reports that the Zentari are preparing a military response. They've already dispatched a fleet to your solar system, confirmed a small, amphibious being. Standard procedure when a new race defies them. Miller's expression hardened. How long until they reach Earth? 3 of your days, the amphibian replied. Fletcher stood. Then we need to present a united front immediately. I propose a new membership structure for the Council, one that gives more autonomy to all member worlds. As the Allied representatives discussed details back on the USS Pioneer, Lieutenant Garcia was working frantically. Captain, he said over the secure channel, I've intercepted Zentari communications. They're telling their fleet that humans are technologically inferior but dangerous. Good, Miller replied. Let's reinforce that impression. Prepare the Pioneer for a series of near FTL maneuvers around the station. Garcia looked concerned. Sir, the Zentari sensors will show that should be impossible for a ship with our technology level. Exactly, Miller said with a small smile. Let's keep them guessing about what humans are capable of. Within the hour, the Pioneer began a series of complex flight patterns around the station. The ship moved at speeds that, according to Zentari intelligence, should be beyond human capabilities. The demonstration caused even more confusion among the council races. Inside the council chambers, the debate raged on. The Zentari chancellor pointed angrily at the human delegation and their new allies. This is unprecedented. Humans have been known to us for less than a week, and already they disrupt centuries of tradition. Fletcher stood calmly at the center of the room. Perhaps some traditions should be disrupted. The council was formed to unite species, not to create a hierarchy with the Zentari at the top. A holographic display activated, showing the Pioneer executing its complex maneuvers. The Chancellor's 4 eyes widened. How is this possible? Your FTL technology is barely functional. Engineer Blackwood, who had joined the delegation, stepped forward. Humans have developed unique approaches to technology. We may have taken different paths than the Zentari, but that doesn't make us inferior. The Krex representative watched the display with growing respect. The humans use less advanced materials but more advanced engineering. Look at their tanks. Primitive propulsion and armor, but extremely effective design. Around the chamber, more representatives began to voice support for the human proposal. The Zentari chancellor's skin darkened with anger. This changes nothing. The Zentari Empire will not be dictated to by newcomers. Fletcher's voice remained steady. We don't seek to dictate. We seek partnership. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to exist as equals. Commander Washington, standing near the chamber entrance, received an urgent message from Martinez. Sir, he whispered to Miller, station security is mobilizing. Looks like the Chancellor is done talking. Miller nodded. Tell Martinez to prepare. Defensive positions. No aggressive actions, but be ready. The Norvani ambassador Soren stepped forward to stand beside Fletcher. The Zentari no longer speak for all of us. If they will not accept change, then perhaps it is time for new leadership in the Council. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was dividing openly, and at the center of it all stood the humans and their tanks. The Zentari High Chancellor stormed into the Council chambers, followed by a group of military officers. Their faces were grim as they took positions around the room. Enough of this nonsense, the Chancellor declared, his voice booming through the translation system. The humans have upset the balance of our society long enough. He pointed directly at Ambassador Fletcher. Earth will accept Protectorate status immediately or face the consequences. Our battle fleet is already on its way to your solar system. The room grew tense. Even the species that had sided with the humans grew quiet at this direct threat. Fletcher looked at Captain Miller, who gave her a slight nod. They had prepared for this moment. Chancellor, Fletcher said calmly, military threats will not change our position. However, you should know that we anticipated this response. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Commander Washington stepped forward. Before the Pioneer left Earth, we dispatched multiple ships in different directions. Each carries the specifications for our FTL drives, weapon systems, and the coordinates of this station. This was a complete bluff. Earth had barely managed to build one interstellar vessel, but Washington delivered the lie with perfect confidence. If Earth is attacked, Washington continued, dozens of human colonies will emerge armed and ready for war. We may be new to the galactic stage, but we are not unprepared. The Zentari officers whispered urgently to each other. The Chancellor's skin color shifted rapidly as he processed this information. You're lying, he finally said, but doubt crept into his voice. Fletcher smiled. Are you willing to take that risk, Chancellor? You've seen our tanks. You've seen what we consider outdated technology. Would you like to see what we consider modern? Lieutenant Garcia, who had been monitoring communications, approached Miller. Sir, they're scanning space around the station. They're looking for human ships. Miller nodded. Good. Let them search. The Krex representative stood suddenly. Chancellor, my military advisors suggest caution. These humans fight differently than we do. Their tanks are primitive but effective. Their ships move in ways we didn't think possible. Perhaps there is truth to their claims. Around the chamber, other representatives began murmuring in agreement. The coalition that Fletcher and Soren had built was growing stronger by the minute. The Chancellor slammed his staff against the floor. This is unacceptable. The Zentari have maintained order for thousands of years. We will not be threatened by newcomers with metal machines. Ambassador Soren of the Norvani stepped forward. Perhaps it is time for change, Chancellor. The humans offer partnership rather than control. Many of us find that appealing. More species began to stand, showing their support for the human position. What had started as a small coalition was now nearly half the council. The Chancellor looked around the room, seeing his authority crumbling. You would side with these primitives? They haven't even unified their own world. True, Fletcher acknowledged. Earth has many nations, many views, but that diversity has made us stronger, more adaptable. Perhaps the Council could benefit from our experience with cooperation between different systems. The Alluvian representative, who had recovered from his earlier shock, spoke softly. I have accessed human historical records. Their world has known terrible conflicts, yet they have developed systems of cooperation across differences. There may be wisdom in their approach. The Chancellor's resolve began to waver as more council members voiced support for the humans. His military officers looked increasingly uncomfortable. Miller stepped closer to Fletcher. Push harder now, he whispered. They're close to breaking. Fletcher nodded and addressed the full council. We propose an immediate vote on Earth's membership status and a review of the council's structure. The old ways have served their purpose, but the galaxy is changing. We can face that change together as equals, or we can cling to outdated hierarchies. Chant began among the smaller species. Vote! 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 The Chancellor's face showed his shock as centuries of unquestioned rule began to collapse around him. He turned to his advisors, desperately seeking a way to regain control. The fleet, he hissed to his military commander. Order them to increase speed to the human world. Unknown to him, Garcia's enhanced listening devices picked up his words clearly. The humans now knew they were running out of time. Captain Miller pulled his team aside after Garcia reported the Chancellor's orders to the fleet. We need to end this now, he said quietly. They're accelerating their attack on Earth. Ambassador Fletcher nodded. Time for our final move. She returned to the center of the council chambers, where debate still raged. The Zentari Chancellor was trying desperately to maintain control, but more species were joining the call for change. Esteemed members of the Council, Fletcher's voice cut through the noise. We have intercepted communications showing the Zentari fleet has been ordered to increase speed toward Earth. The Chancellor's skin darkened with rage. How dare you spy on official communications? Fletcher continued calmly. Is attacking a potential new member without Council approval standard procedure, Chancellor? This revelation caused uproar. Many representatives had supported giving the humans time to consider membership options. An unprovoked attack violated Council principles. The Krex representative stood tall. I move that the fleet be recalled immediately. The humans have shown themselves worthy of respect, if not full membership. Ambassador Soren added, I second this motion and propose that Earth be granted provisional membership status while we restructure Council policies. The Chancellor looked around desperately as his support crumbled. This is not how things are done. Perhaps it's time for new ways, Fletcher replied. After hours of heated debate, a vote was called. The result stunned the Chancellor. Nearly 70% of Council races supported Earth's provisional membership and the recall of the Zentari fleet. Defeated, the Chancellor gave the order. The fleet would return to Zentari space. As the session ended, Miller approached Fletcher. You did it, Diana. You got us membership without a war. Fletcher smiled tiredly. We all did it. The tanks certainly helped. Speaking of the tanks, it was time for them to go. As a gesture of goodwill, the humans agreed to remove their cultural artifacts from the Council chambers. Security Chief Martinez supervised as the massive war machines were loaded onto transport vessels. Many Council representatives came to watch, some even requesting closer looks at the engineering. Amazing, said a small insect-like being, tapping the armor plating. So simple, yet so effective. No wonder you humans have survived despite your isolation. The following day, Captain Miller and Ambassador Fletcher were invited to address the full council. The chamber was packed, with every species eager to hear from the humans who had changed everything. Miller spoke first. Earth has a long history, filled with both conflict and cooperation. We've made mistakes, fought wars among ourselves, but we've also created art, music, and built communities across differences. Fletcher continued, We don't come to the galaxy claiming perfection. We come offering partnership and hoping to learn. Our differences, both from each other and from you, are our strength. The council listened in respectful silence. Even the Zentari Chancellor seemed thoughtful rather than angry. When the session ended, Lieutenant Commander Wright updated her official log. It's been 5 days since we arrived at the Galactic Council Station. In that time, we've upended centuries of tradition, formed new alliances, and secured Earth's place in the galactic community. She paused, looking out at the stars. And we did it by bringing tanks to a diplomatic meeting. As the Pioneer prepared to depart, carrying news of their success back to Earth, Miller gathered his crew one last time on the observation deck. Together, they watched as the massive council station grew smaller behind them. Do you think they'll ever forgive us for the tanks? Wright asked with a small smile. Miller laughed. Probably not. I heard some of the smaller species are already calling. This tank day, the day the balance of power in the galaxy began to shift. Engineer Daniels grinned. Not bad for a bunch of primitives with outdated technology. The ship's engines hummed as they prepared for the jump back to Earth. They were returning home not as explorers, but as the representatives of the newest member of the Galactic Council. And somewhere in the cargo hold, 2 M1 Abrams tanks sat quietly, having accomplished more for diplomacy than anyone could have imagined. Human ingenuity had once again found an unexpected solution, proving that sometimes the best way to secure peace was to bring a very big stick to the negotiating table.